We got a special treat today. We've got Carl Fismer sitting down with us, and he's talking about treasure hunting and wreck diving. For y'all that don't know, Carl is a world famous treasure hunter and wreck diver. He's a television star, motivational speaker, and he's the founder of the Spanish Maine Treasure Company. The wrecks that Carl has dove on are so many. It's hard to compile a list, but some of the highlights would be the Conception, the 1715 fleet, Spanish fleet, as well as the 1733 Spanish fleet, and the various ships involved with that. I guess, Carl, could you explain a little bit about the wreck diving that you've done, like say on the Spanish fleet in the Conception?
Yeah, well, first, Chris, I'd like to say thanks for that nice introduction. It's even hard for me to believe, but these last 40 years, that's pretty much what I've done. I started out on Spanish wrecks on the 1733 fleet with Art McKee, and Art McKee was the father of modern day treasure hunting. He built the first treasure museum in the United States. The building is still standing just 2 miles down the road from where I live in the Keys. It's a Montessori school now, but in its day, it was the treasure museum. Anyway, I had worked independently for about 6 years up in Sarasota, Florida, in the Gulf of Mexico, and I read every book in the library, but I even developed some electronic skills, but I wasn't doing very good at all. So I decided I was going to drive to the Keys and force myself on Art McKee no matter what. So I drove down, I pulled in his driveway. His house was right next to the museum. So Art was on a riding lawnmower, and he turned it off. He came walking over. He said, "I'm Art McKee." I said, "Yes, sir. I know who you are. My name's Carl Fismer. I want to be a treasure hunter, and I'm willing to work for free." So that's how it started.
Okay. Well, going into that, my first big question, because there's a lot of us, including me. I've been doing some treasure hunting for about, I don't know, about 15 plus years, but it's mainly been on the land, and I talk to guys every day, guys and gals every day that would like to do a little bit more with the hobby that they're involved with. I guess the burning question for me would be, describe that first treasure hunt, or what got you hooked on treasure hunting?
Well, the first treasure hunt I actually went on was on land, and I tried a lot of land stuff like you guys are doing, but I'll tell you, it was a lot tougher than jumping in the water, especially clear water, and swimming around. But after we didn't have any success on the land, I was on the fire department for the city of Sarasota, Florida, and I got my boat captain's license there. I got put in charge of the boat, the fire boat, and the divers. And one day we were out. We were supposed to be practicing our rescue and recovery techniques, but by a quirk of God's mercy, I guess you'd call it, we ended up anchoring right over top of a shipwreck. It was a modern thing, like I guess 1940s mini freighter, just laying on there. And the first minute we didn't get work done. We started diving on that wreck, and it was full of copper pipes and tubing inside. So we thought, heck, we'll get rich on scrapping copper. So we burned 2 tanks each, pulling all that old copper out. And by the time I took it to the junkyard, I think we got about $6 or $7 for it. But that's what got me on shipwrecks.
All right. Well, that's good.
And then I switched, of course, to Spanish galleons after that.
Okay. Out of all the wrecks that you've dove on, and participated in. Um, what's your favorite wreck? What stood out about that dive or that series of dives that make it your favorite?
I've got to say the wreck of the Conception, which sank in 1641. Matter of fact, that's the coin I'm wearing here. I worked this wreck back in 1986, brought back about 12,000 coins. It was really my first time to put a trip together, start to finish, and be expedition leader and the boss and in charge, and some people from Atlanta gave me a lot of money to get it going, and now I was responsible for the first time in my life. The Conception is on what's known as Silver Shoals Reef. It's about a 40 square mile reef, but a lot of the heads are awash at low tide. Closest point of land is Puerto Plata, Dominican Republic on the north coast, and that's 75 miles. So it was quite a responsibility, but I didn't think of it like that at the time. Anyway, we went out, we were successful, we came back. The backers, I don't use the term investors, I say backers,
Mm-hmm.
because when you say the word invest to somebody, it makes them think they're going to get a return back on their money, and most of the time that's not true. So I call them backers and I tell them why. But in this case, the backers got all their money back. They got double their money back, and they still had a bunch of treasure coins left over. So that was very successful. My first important jump out of the box. I love the wreck of the Conception because my friend Jack Haskins actually was the guy that jumped in the water 20 some years before I was there and discovered it. I worked with Jack for 32 years, and that's the only reason I know as much as I do know.
Okay. Now, what kind of artifacts and you said coins, but what were the artifacts on the Conception?
Well, we got one piece of gold chain. We got silver utensils, like a real nice silver cream pitcher, excellent condition. We even found a human backbone intact. The whole vertebrae
Mm-hmm.
was there with some of the rib bones. And actually, the curator of the museum there got more excited over the human remains than he did all the treasure we were bringing in. You don't generally find an intact skeleton because, the animals, if it's a dead body, the animals will eat them and tear them apart, carry some of them off, but we did have an intact spinal column. We also got a real nice bronze bell. It was a French salvage vessel that sank about 1680, apparently attempting to salvage the Conception. But like I mentioned earlier, those reef heads, many of them are awash at low tide.
Mm-hmm.
The Spanish name for that bank was Abrojos, which means keep your eyes open. Very dangerous place.
Okay. Over the 40 years that you've been treasure hunting, I guess talk to us a little bit about what you've seen come and go as far as maybe what was it like back in the early days when you got into it, maybe some of the laws that you've seen instituted, and maybe some of the equipment changes.
Yeah, well, you have a radio program, so that's electronics, and you know that probably things change almost every year. Same for the electronics in my business. Back in the 70s, we had an old military style magnetometer, and it worked good. A magnetometer senses variations in the natural magnetic field caused by cannons and anchors, we hope. But the ones today are just so light years ahead of the ones I broke in with. You happen to know who John Chatterton is?
No, huh?
They wrote a book about him called The Shadow Divers. And I think 20th Century Fox bought it for a movie, but John Chatterton TV show Deep Sea Detectives. If you
Yeah.
ever, that's John Chatterton.
Okay.
He was the tall, ugly guy on there. And I've been working with John for a couple of years now, and he is as high tech as you get in the business. He has a magnetometer that not only senses everything, it tells you how much it weighs, how big it is, how far under the sand it is, and I wouldn't be surprised if the darn thing didn't make coffee and sandwiches as well. And I said, John, I have hundreds of hours pulling a mag behind the boat, but this is like, going from an old World War I biplane to Star Trek or something. So yeah, electronics, and you probably know being on the radio that every year they get better. As far as the laws go, every day they get worse. If you do a lot of land stuff, then you know better than me that every day, some section of land somewhere in our country is being posted. No metal detectors in here. No, they're scared to death. You might find something that's worth $4 or $5. I don't know, but same way in the shipwrecks. Since academia has been pressuring Congress to keep passing laws against us private people, like Jack Haskins, Mel Fisher, Kip Wagner, Art McKee. These were the pioneers in the business. They're the ones that developed everything, including going to Spain and doing research in the archives. Jack Haskins could translate archaic Spanish. He everything, research, translation, search, salvage, preservation, marketing, the whole 9 yards was done by private people. And what happened now? The bureaucrats and the politicians have pretty much taken it all over. And they're pretending like it was really them that did all the hard work. The government did not care about old shipwrecks, did not care about them at all until Art McKee, Kip Wagner, Mel Fisher, they started bringing up treasure. And then all of a sudden, we got to pass laws protecting that.
Now,
You get the feeling I'm a little mad about that?
Yeah, I can. It's a sore subject, no question. Now, down in Florida, like it's my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, a lot of the wrecks and stuff. I mean, you have to acquire a lease that's maybe already leased, or someone owns the lease, or how does that work?
Well, there used to be a thing in this country called Admiralty Law. And what that was, the old law of the sea. It's even written in old Jewish scripture from thousands of years ago. My doctor was telling me, in fact, he was quoting to me from the Jewish scripture. If you have a ship and it sinks, well, that ship is yours, and you want to go looking for it. And if you can't find it, well, you can keep looking and keep looking. As long as you're looking for it, you own that vessel. But when you finally get tired of looking, you used up too much money or whatever, and you say, that's it, I quit, then somebody like me could start looking for it too. And if I found it, then I owned it. That's called Admiralty Law. It's been the law as long as there's been a boat on the water. Well, back in the 1980s, Ted Kennedy and Bill Bradley decided they didn't like Admiralty Law. So they had a meeting with 6 other senators just before Christmas when everybody else was gone on vacation, and they voted to pass the abandoned shipwreck bill, which basically gave ownership to the states or whatever, the closest politicians to the wrecks now legally own the wrecks. Dirty, dirty, sneaky trick. And I'm sure they pull that on you land guys too. This is for your own good, or we're protecting the artifacts. But no, the state of Florida has not issued. Now, you can get a search permit fairly easy, but the state of Florida has not issued a permit to salvage, I'd say, in almost 15 years. And my attorneys tell me that they've made some kind of secret deal with Spain now that they're not going to give permission. But they're not going to tell you we've got a deal with Spain. This all happened because of Hillary Clinton. She she took the Odyssey in Tampa as the biggest treasure company in the world. They've offered me jobs 6, 7 times over the last few years. I mean, I like them, but I'm just kind of do independent stuff. You know, I don't think I could hunt treasure from 9 to 5 or whatever they do. But Hillary Clinton, as you may know, took away their coins that they salvaged from a Spanish ship, and there were 500,000 of them, 500,000 silver pieces of 8, and she gave them to the King of Spain. And now everybody believes that Spain owns all the Spanish wrecks in the ocean. And so our next question to them is, why don't you clean up the mercury that your ship spilled too? You know, because it costs a heck of a lot more than that money they're getting. And so that our Environmental Protection Agency is aware of it, but they're afraid to say anything because you can't get mad at one of Hillary's friends. Otherwise, the EPA budget ain't going to be so extraordinarily large next year. So everything connected with government is pick and choose for bureaucrats and politicians. If you're a National Geographic collector, look up December 1979. It's called the Quicksilver Galleons. 2 wrecks in the Keys called the Tolosa and the Guadalupe. It's the only time you're going to see pictures in National Geographic of mercury spill on the bottom of the ocean. And that's about as toxic as it gets. Well, why don't Hillary have her friend, the King of Spain, go clean that up? After all, he says he owns those wrecks.
You know, are there any like lawsuits going on now to try to get around that, or?
Not to my knowledge. You know, Mel Fisher and his family fought the government for years. I worked with Mel for 12 years, and we had a lot of conversations. It cost Mel, last time he told me, $7 million in legal fees just to defend what was legally and rightfully his. The state of Florida spent your tax dollars, so what did they care? Millions of dollars of tax money. When you go into state court, if you're a treasure hunter, you go into Florida state court, you lose. I don't care if God came down and testified that you were in the right, they would call God a liar in state court, and then you'd have to appeal to the federal courts. Mel did that 113 times. He won 112 straight in the federal courts, where the federal judges told the state of Florida, come on, you know better than that. You know that's not yours. That belongs to the Fisher family, including the Supreme Court. So the Fishers are still working here in Florida because of that Supreme Court decision, but the state of Florida hates them. They hate because they can't stop them.
Yeah.
Everybody else they've done stop.
Well, that's a shame. Well, you know, when I was researching and studying for the interview, you know, every piece of you know, interview that you've done in the past and all the stuff you can find on you're always constantly trying to help people. You know, whether it's, you know, one of your motivational speaking jobs or doing interviews like this, and I've seen you on some of the other radio shows and heard you. You're always trying to help. You're a very reachable guy. You're very approachable. You know, having said that, you know, new guys and gals trying to get into treasure hunting, whether it's metal detecting or actually diving or something, I mean, what kind of advice would you give them?
Well, fortunately, you know, metal detecting, I've been working with the mayor of Fort Pierce, Florida for last year. This marks the 300th anniversary of the 1715 Spanish treasure fleet sinking. And Fort Pierce is the main place. For 50, 60 years now, me and a lot of other people have been picking up coins and artifacts on the beach, gold and silver. Some of those gold coins on that fleet. They're called Eight Escudo Royals.
Mm-hmm.
The last one auctioned for $375,000.
Mm.
I I always wondered why all you land metal detector guys ain't beating the path to Fort Pierce and metal detecting those beaches. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of the metal detector guys, like the FM Federation of Metal Detectors, they'll have their convention over in Clearwater Beach. Clearwater's a nice beach. It's a nice town. I've been there, but there's no treasure wrecks offshore with coins washing
Mm-hmm.
in. I don't know why. Didn't know. Did nobody ever hear of it? Because I've been writing about it, and I tell new people, get your metal detector, get out. I used to sell metal detectors, and I tell them, I said, if you're just going to stick this in the closet, don't buy it. This is going to get your fat butt up off the couch. You're going to get out there and swing that thing. You're going to bend over a lot. You're going to dig a lot of trash
Mm-hmm.
because those metal detectors love pop tops and things like that. And believe me, I've dug up more pop tops than coins, and I've dug up thousands of coins, but more pop tops and pieces of crap. If anybody develops a metal detector that discriminates, good discrimination,
Mm-hmm.
out wiping out aluminum, they're going to be rich.
Oh
But you
yeah.
got to move. You got to move fast because, like I said earlier, every day more territory is off limits. But
Yeah.
the mayor of Fort Pierce invites everybody with a metal detector, come on down and hit these beaches. You could get lucky.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about your company, the Spanish Maine Treasure Company. What do you do there?
Basically, what it is, I used to have a corporation, but I let it drop, and right now I'm a doing business as Spanish Main Treasure Company. You're right. I probably get calls, emails, and Facebook hits and LinkedIn every day. Somebody asking me, how do I get started? I'd like to do it. And I remember how good Art McKee and Jack Haskins were to me. And you're right, I do. I help. Somebody asks for help, I help them, and I tell them the truth. So the Spanish Main, a friend of mine thought that up about, I guess it's been somewhere between 35 and 40 years ago. And I like the name because, that's the sailing routes is
Mm-hmm.
actually I even recorded a song called Life on the Spanish Main, which with a friend of mine, Sam Milner, who he plays and sings and has a recording studio. And he said, I want you to record with me. I said, with my voice? He said, yeah, it's kind of a different voice, but I think it'll sound good on a recording. And he wrote the song called Life on the Spanish Main. I liked it a lot. It got some radio play,
Mm-hmm.
but I told Sam, I said, you let me record with you, you'll never work in this town again. And he hasn't. So so anyway, I was proud of Spanish Main Treasure Company, and then over the years, the bureaucrats hate treasure hunters so bad, and they're always saying bad things. And I've actually had a few people saying, "Don't you think you should just like take the word treasure out and call it the salvage company or something?" I said, "I'm proud of it. I'm a treasure hunter." And if the bureaucrats don't like it, I don't care. If somebody asks me what I do, I'm a treasure hunter. I'm not going to say I'm a guy that metal detects, I don't, a salvage. I hunt treasure. I don't know if I'm a good diver or a bad diver because the only reason I get in the water is either working a wreck or looking for a wreck. I haven't caught a fish or a lobster since about 1980, and I've been. People ask me how many dives you got. Truthfully, I never kept a log, but I estimate about 4,000.
Mm.
And yeah, when I have a couple of friends it's got way more than that, but that's way more than most people. So every time I get in the water, I'm working a wreck or I'm looking for a new one.
Okay. Now I saw on LinkedIn a couple weeks ago where you've got a new company you've started, the call Fismer nonprofit.
Ex- Yeah,
Yeah.
Carl Fismer Expeditions. Well, just this year, I've taken on a business manager. It just, whenever I go on trips, it depends on the budget. When we went to Silver Shoals and worked at Conception, I had 10 people. When I worked in the southern Bahamas on Hogs Reef, I had 10 people. But that's just most of the time I just have me, or maybe one other guy, a friend will go with me. So I have the guy's a professional fundraiser, and he's raised a lot of money legitimately for a lot of people. And he just said he's interviewed me 3 times before he said I'll take you as a client. He said you have so much potential, and he even mentioned the part about helping people, which I do. Uh, in the cancer fund, and I've had 4 major cancers. I almost left the world 3 times, but I I don't know. I'm still around. I get checked a lot. And in fact, I was at the doctor's 3 days ago. I'm clean, but I know it's going to come back as long as we catch it early enough. They'll either stop it or I'll just go on to the next whatever that's going to be. The, as we call it in the business, the big ballast mound in the sky.
The,
But anyway, oh, I'm sorry, I got off of my business manager is in the process of raising funds. Like I said, I'm working with John Chatterton and a couple other people now, and we've got 2 big projects planned, but it's going to take money. And he said we're going to get you going on a nonprofit because that's the easiest way to raise money. He knows, I don't know, but I'll tell you, the hardest part of this business is raising money.
okay.
And the government has made it harder on the people who will take a chance with it. It used to be on a legitimate treasure hunt. If you lost your money, you could write it off on your taxes. Well, the government, one of the first things they did, they stopped that. No more write-offs for people that give money to those dirty treasure hunters. We
Mm-hmm.
hate them. And but some people still do. And then whenever they get something back that's valuable, they had to put the IRS on them. Like one lady had a silver bar from Mel Fisher, and Mel appraised those bars at $40,000. Well, of course, if you melt it and you just melt the silver, you back then, not today.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, they melted for about 6 or 7 thousand, depending on how big they were. So the IRS came in harassing Mel's backers, saying, "You owe us taxes on $40,000." Had to take that into court and beat the IRS down because you can, you at least can keep your coins, you can keep your silver, you can keep your artifacts, no matter what they're appraised at, until the day you sell them. But if and when you sell them, then you have to pay money on how much you sell them for. You have to pay taxes. But the government, if there's a way to screw you, they're going to at least try it until you beat them down in court. And they're only spending tax dollars when they go to court.
One last question. In the news here lately, and y'all probably have got probably a little bit more scoop on it, but I read an article the other day about Odyssey. They've got a deal worked out with some, I think it's a Mexican company, mining company. Um, what's your thoughts on that? I kind of think that it may end up being pretty good for them.
Well, I'll tell you, it was a big secret because I was meeting with Greg Stem and Mark Gordon, the 2 big guys in Odyssey, maybe 18 months ago too. But and that was all top secret at the time. But now it's out in public. And the way they laid that out to me was, I thought it was one heck of a deal. They've got the capabilities to do it, and the way they explained it to me, because they wanted me to go to work for them, and I said I don't know anything about 15,000 feet deep remotes. I use a 40-foot blower boat, and Greg Stem said, "Well, Carl, to tell you the truth, we were thinking about, since we had an agreement with Mexico, we would take the shallow wrecks too." And what I'm here to tell you now, that I would jump on in a heartbeat. There are so many good Spanish wrecks in Mexico. Your great great grandson would never finish the job. I heard last week that the whole deal went south. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Somebody told me that
Mm-hmm.
that apparently a Mexican company popped up and they decided to go with them. I heard. I don't know if it's true.
Okay. Well, we're gonna wrap it up right there, Carl. I wanted to keep it short. I know you're busy, and obviously for the viewers too, when they watch the video, keep it short, and obviously the upload times with YouTube and all that. But I just want to thank you. Really, I really do appreciate you taking out the time and doing this interview for Treasure Hunting Life. Um, really do appreciate it, and I'll be talking to you in the future, and I'll keep an eye up on what your new companies are doing, and we'll talk again.
One quick note: Robert Kerson's book just came out called The Pirate Hunters. Uh, it'll actually hit the newsstands June 13th. But I helped do the research on that, and he mentions me in there, and I'm pretty proud of it. So
Oh,
when the Pirate Hunters hits the stands, everybody should go out and buy one of them.
absolutely, we will. I'll put a link on the page for that book as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Take
Any,
care.
anytime. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Yeah, bye bye.